But now there's more and more studies coming out that there are people that have what's called short sleeps, and they need 4 to 6 hours. And it's the quality of the sleep, not the duration.
So how many hours between that last workout and sleep would be a safe?
If it's intense, I would say at least 3 or 4 hours.
If sleep is a problem for you, I could not recommend more putting that phone away 2 to 3 hours before you want to settle down. On today's episode, we'll be talking about sleep. Some people have a very easy time falling asleep, while others lay in bed tossing and turning for hours on end. There are things that you can do to help yourself get a more restful night's sleep, and we're going to talk about all of it today. Let's get right to it. Sleep is something that everybody has a lot of experience with. We all do it at least a few hours a day, maybe 8 or 9 hours a day even.
Yeah.
Some people are tortured by sleep. They just can't get enough. They're always fighting against it, while other people sleep a lot and feel like they could even use a little more. So it's an interesting topic. I'm really excited about this episode.
Yeah.
I know sleep is something that you seem to not need a lot of.
Keyword is seems now. Keyword is seems. We'll know when the curtain falls from Mike Lynch, but it seems that way so far.
Okay. The circadian disruptions can really impact so much of your daily life,
Yes.
right? Your overall metabolic health, you can get sick more if you're not sleeping properly. You have cognitive disruptions. You're like brain fog. You can't think straight. Sleep can really be, it can have a lot of negative effects on people who haven't figured out the proper ways to get their body into that restful state each night. Today, we're going to offer people a lot of different information that will give them the tools they need to make some small changes in their life and hopefully get a much more restful night of sleep.
Yeah. Or potentially, if they're not getting quote unquote the normal amount of sleep, there's an answer for it. And I know for me, I was freaking out for a long period of time because I was following the guidelines of 7 to 9 hours. And now there's some studies coming out that is not necessary in a good percentage of people that especially are healthy. And we'll talk about that.
Okay. So you feel like you don't fall into the 7 to 9 category.
I definitely do not. Unless I take a medication or I eat, and we'll get into that. If I eat horribly, then I go into a coma kind of sleep. And I typically don't feel well when I wake up from that amount of sleep.
Hmm.
Psychologically, I do because I'm like, I finally got the sleep that they said I need. But now there's more and more studies coming out that there are people that have what's called short sleeps, and they need 4 to 6 hours. And it's the quality of the sleep, not the duration.
Now, one of the things that people should keep in mind if you're trying to feel rested after a night's sleep, and one of the most important parts of getting good sleep is consistency. Consistency in terms of when you're going to sleep so that your body has a general idea
Yeah.
of when it should be starting to, turn things down and get ready to go into that sleep mode.
Yeah.
And then also consistency in terms of when you're waking up. And this was something that I didn't have for a lot of my life. But after having a child and having to get up every day, I mean, that crow was squawking at 6 a.m. every day. My son was an early riser, still is for the most part. But man, for the first 5, 6 years of his life, he was up at like 5:30, maybe 5:45 every day. But for better or worse, now I'm stuck in that mode. I wake up early without an alarm. If I go to bed at my, the normal time,
Okay.
I wake up like 10 or 15 minutes before my alarm goes off. And I'm like, I'm up. My body knows like it's about time.
Well, there's sleep doctors actually, and they'll say that that's one of the hallmarks of whether you're getting good sleep or not. If you can get up or you get up before your alarm. If you're constantly, if that alarm clock's blasting you to get up, something's awry,
Yeah.
But if you're getting up before the alarm clock, your body's saying, hey, Nick, you're ready to go. Let's go. Let's go do a podcast.
Yep. Now, another thing that I think is really important, and some people don't think about this, is temperature.
Yeah, man.
Temperature is a big thing. And for me, both temperature actually and light. These are things that can really affect me when I sleep, and they make going to sleep much easier if they're dialed in. And when I say dialed in, for me, and I think for most people, you want a nice cool temperature,
Right.
right? If you're overly hot, if
Yes.
it's a summer night and the windows are open and you're sweaty, good luck. You're not getting a good night's sleep. You're going to be up all the time, right? But if you're cooled down a little bit, but you got the covers over you, you're a little cozy, and it's dark. And I mean completely dark.
Yeah.
I can't
Like
have
stub your toe dar.
Yes, I can't even have like a clock that's an LED clock on.
Uh,
There have been times where I've had to take a clock and turn it over so that the, dial is facing down
sure.
because just that little bit of light is driving me crazy.
Right.
And most people don't realize that, but you really do want a totally dark environment and a nice and cool environment too. So, if you're having problems, blackout curtains can help. They actually sell, you can get like almost like a dimming sticker. So you can put a sticker over lights that are in your room. If there's like a little green light on something to say that it's charging,
Okay.
you can dim that down by putting a little dimming sticker over it. And there are ways to really take that light down, and it's helpful.
Are we looking at like Lynch Fit podcast dimming stickers for
Maybe.
alarm
Yeah,
clocks?
and blackout curtains too, and blackout curtains.
You know, you bring up a good point too, Nick. And what people don't realize when you exercise and exercise vigorously, your body temperature could stay elevated for many hours after the exercise session. So, for a lot of people that struggle with sleep, training late at night and training hard is probably not a great idea because their body temperature is going to get cranked up, the metabolism is going to get revved up, and they may have a tough time despite the room temperature being cool. If their body's amped up and they're hot and they ate a high protein meal, their internal temperature is going to be hot, and they may have a tough time or that night or many nights if they exercise all the time at nighttime falling asleep. So
Is it also a heart rate thing as well?
sure, heart rate, when you train, it's a bit of a stress, not going out for a leisurely walk, but so that's gonna amp up, norepinephrine, cortisol. So for a lot of people, exercising late in the day is probably a no-go if they're struggling with sleep. Now, I know, babe, I'm gonna give information out about you, so I hope this is okay with my wife. When she got divorced from her ex-husband, because 'cause we're both remarried, everybody goes through a divorce. They want to get, hot as hell because they're going to go back out on the circuit. And she was doing two-a-days. She was going at the dating world, and I thank God I swiped her up, Nick. But she was
Good work,
exercising.
my friend.
Yeah. And babe, love you. And she was exercising before she went to work, and then she was doing cardio before she went to bed. And she's blessed like you, Nick. She just boom. My wife looks dead. She literally, I have to check for a pulse when she sleeps. She doesn't move, she doesn't pee or anything. So she was like a freak where she can exercise twice a day, literally take a shower, eat something, and go to bed and be solid.
Yeah.
That is a sleep lotto. So most people do not want to be hammering away at cardio and jacking up their heart, like you said. Now the room's hot, their body temperature's hot, and they're gonna toss and turn all night long. So it's people watching our podcast to get healthy and fit, and they're gonna listen to our recommendations, and they can really throw themselves.
So how many hours between that last workout and sleep would be a safe?
If it's intense, I would say at least 3 to 4 hours, ideally.
Okay. All right.
And
Interesting.
and then now you also have to think about this, Nick. If you're exercising, we advocate recovery nutrition. So now if you're training hard and now you have a belly full of food, probably not great for people that struggle with sleep,
Yeah.
unless it's like you and my wife and you guys
Sure.
are like,
No, but even if you're good at going to sleep or you can easily stay asleep for a long period of time, you still don't want to put yourself in a position
No.
where your body's fighting against it. And that full belly and that exercise, and there are a bunch of things,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about them today. That even for people who can get a really easy, restful night of sleep, they can still throw off their circadian rhythms as well.
Yeah.
But one thing you mentioned that your wife sleeps really deeply. It
Phenomenal.
reminded me of a story. I sleep so deep. In college, I had two roommates, and I went to sleep, and one of them came home, was probably drunk, tried to cook some food. She fell asleep and started a fire in the kitchen.
No
The
shit.
fire alarms went off. I didn't hear it. I was sleeping.
What?
The fire department came. I didn't hear it. They put the fire out. There was like people in my apartment. They were checking things. Apparently, they came into my room to check to see if there was a fire in there. Obviously, there wasn't. I didn't hear it. The next morning, I woke up and there's like footprints all over the house and there's like a flame stain on the wall and everything smelled like smoke. And I had no idea what happened. They were like, "You slept through that whole thing. We thought you were dead, but
Leaving
we
this
checked and you were breathing, so we just left you there." No idea it happened.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that was an interesting night. Another thing that is standing between people and a good night's sleep is screen time.
Yeah.
Blue light from phones, from computers,
Ugh.
from TVs, all these different things, they are standing between people and a good night's sleep. And of course, we all want to sit in bed when we're done with the day and, look at some articles or look at some social media or play a game or do something that feels de-stressing.
Yeah.
But if sleep is a problem for you, I could not recommend more putting that phone away 2 to 3 hours before you wanna settle down.
Right.
It's important, and honestly, it'll open up some time for you to just listen to some music or read a book or talk, and you'd be surprised. It's like, again, and we've talked about this before, going back and living in the '80s for a little while, but it's not bad, and if that's all it takes for you to get a good night's sleep, you might as well try.
Right. And this is not my wheelhouse, Nick. You would know this better than me. For people that won't change that way, aren't there stuff that they can put on their computer, like a film and stuff
Yeah,
like that?
actually, I have
Right?
you can set if you have an iPhone, it's probably the same on any other phone, but you can turn off the blue light or change the light on the phone. I've set it up so I can, like, triple click one of the buttons, and it turns the screen red.
Okay. Red.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's supposed to be better. Again, this is not a huge problem for me, and
Right.
I also really I try to give it, like, an hour. An
Okay.
hour for me is, like, the right amount of time where if I'm going to sleep between, let's say, like 9:30 and 10 o'clock, somewhere between 8:30 and 9 o'clock, I'm putting that phone down and there's stuff to do anyway.
Right.
There's if you got kids, if you got a family, even if you're just getting ready for work tomorrow, you're laying your clothes out, you're getting your papers ready, you got to set your backpack or your briefcase up, and you got to just get yourself set for the
Yeah.
morning. The last thing I'll say about the screens is it's not just the blue light. Another part of it is the mental stimulation. A lot of people enjoy, and I don't know why, looking at things that get them angry on the internet, right? You're like commenting back and forth with people who you're arguing with, or you're reading an article that's getting you amped up and angry about this thing or that thing. Don't do it at night. If you're gonna do that, if you really like that, if that's what makes you happy, if that's what puts you in your ideal zone, I mean, you should probably reconsider doing that anyway,
Well,
but
yeah.
if you really want that, don't do it right before bed because that's what's gonna start the brain going, and then for me, like, the nights that I do have a problem sleeping, it's because 'cause I'm overthinking, right? And so, people who are in that aggravated, stimulated state, they're overthinking. Their brain is like on overdrive because they're angry or they're worked up. And that's not a good way to go to sleep
No.
and certainly not a good way to get restful sleep. There's also the food you're eating,
Yeah.
right? And there are some foods that actually can aid in getting a good night's sleep,
That's correct.
and some things that you don't want to do. So, what are some things food wise in terms of consumption that you don't want to have right before you go to sleep?
Okay. So I would say that what you alluded to before, that you don't want a big meal before you go off to sleep. And here's a reason why. It's not a protein carbohydrate thing, keto, paleo, whatever it is. There's the old saying that you can't do two things at once, right? And your body wants to prioritize one thing at a time. It's like if people are typing, it's like I hate when I go to a doctor and I'm telling him what's wrong and he's looking at the screen. I'm like, this bastard's not listening to me. And it's been scientifically proven that you can't do that, right? So if you put this big, huge meal in your stomach, you're telling your body now, here we're gonna do. We're gonna do protein synthesis. We're going to send blood into the stomach to aid in digestion. Oh, and wait, hold on. Now you want to sleep as well? Uh-uh. No way. You already put this food in there. Now I got to do the digestion process. And, if you have something high in protein, that can stimulate you. and it's not a great idea. So from a food perspective, I would say no matter what you're eating, Nick, try to knock it out 3 hours beforehand. Now, there are some people that turn over calories quick. Now, they might be young or have a very laborious job, and just a little tiny light snack of something light in protein and carbohydrates can nudge them and not make them feel hungry. Because the counter to that, or the opposing thing to that, is being ravenously hungry. That will keep you up as well.
Hmm.
I know it's a bit of a tightrope to walk, but you don't want to go totally full, but you don't want to go ravenously hungry, because even if you can fall asleep, a lot of times bodybuilders struggle with this when they're getting preparing for a show. They will wake up in the middle of the night starving. And because cortisol goes up and their body is actually waking them up and
Why? Because
saying,
they're not eating intentionally so that they can look more shredded?
yeah, they're shredded, they're in a deficit, they're doing tons of cardio, they're doing tons of training, their body fats are at single digits,
Mhm.
and that is, mm, it looks nice, but it's not healthy. And in the middle of the night, usually 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and this can happen to somebody who's not a bodybuilder, you'll get a rush of cortisol, and it will wake you up. It'll say, hey, go get me some food. And now you're up, like, and they may not be hungry, because high cortisol levels can actually suppress hunger in people. So that's another reason that, where you don't want to be, it's kind of
It's a tightrope to walk.
it's kind of like you don't want to go to bed with this big, huge, full stomach of food, but you also don't want to be ravenously hungry. So that's where a light snack. And I would say, like, protein and carbohydrates probably do a balance of both. You don't want to do something that's really high in fat that's going to be sluggish in your stomach. So it's going to really be an individual thing.
Now, I've heard that, tart cherries or tart cherry juice contains melatonin, I think, and it
Hmm.
can actually aid in sleep for some
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
So things like that. Also, some nuts, I think walnuts, almonds, and pistachios also contain, some ingredients that can help in sleep as well.
Yeah. And look, it really is nutrition is a very individual thing. So there's people that will do very well with carbohydrates and protein, and some people will get a blood sugar high and then a low, and that could wake them up. So they may want to try something high in protein and fat. The name of the game is definitely keeping it healthy and light. Whether it's protein, I would say that you have two options for most people. It's going to be a protein and a fat meal, or protein and a carbohydrate meal. And they should be light. They shouldn't be a big caloric load, maybe 200-300 calories. So maybe a little yogurt, nuts, that's protein and fat.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, we have maybe a couple of whole grain crackers with, a little bit of chicken breast. I'm just for
Sure.
an example,
Sure, sure.
or a little egg white omelet, or, and a piece of gluten-free toast or something like that. So I wouldn't mix it all together, because now you're gonna have slow digestion, and
Yeah.
that can prevent you from falling asleep.
Okay. I just wanna maybe look at a couple sleep myths and see if, what you think about these.
Okay.
Can you catch up on sleep? You lost all sleep during the week, you haven't been sleeping well, and you're like, "It's the weekend, I'm finally gonna catch up on sleep." Is that a thing?
All the sleep experts that I've talked to say absolutely not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not actually helping you, and then you
Nice.
sleep for that long period of time, you probably wake up groggy, you
Yes.
wasted the weekend. It's more important to get that consistency in terms of going to bed and waking up at the same time,
Yeah.
probably.
And can say from my own experience is, if I do sleep a lot on the weekends, it screws me up Sunday night. And now Monday, I'm shot, because I slept long on Sunday, and in the short term, it felt good. And especially psychologically, you say, I finally got sleep.
Yep.
But now Sunday night,
You're wired.
you're wired, man.
Yeah.
And then it's to the pot of coffee Monday morning, and then the vicious cycle starts. So every sleep expert that I've ever spoken to, or any articles I read, is like steady, easy sleep time, or consistent. But look, we have to live real lives too, Nick. We don't want people to be neurotic. What do I do if I get invited to a wedding? They're like, oh, gotta go
Of
now,
course, of course.
so
And that has to do with
there's
food,
gotta
with
be a give.
sleep, with all this stuff. You have to be realistic, and every once in a while, you gotta bend those rules.
Yeah, and I would be honest. I mean, you didn't ask this question, but it brings up a topic in my mind that a lot of people are too dogmatic and it's got to be this and that can build anxiety. And now you got these sleep trackers and they've been proven to be off. And, people have asked me, hey, Mike, do you use like, I won't say the names. And I said, no, I already have enough shit in my life to think about already. I don't need it. I know when I have a bad night's sleep. I don't need a device to like remind me of it. So if you're like, oh, I got to go to sleep at this time, and the rigidity that can cause problems too. So for on average, it's just like dietary recommendations or exercise recommendations. Just say on average, this is what you should be doing. But if you miss a workout or a meal, or you eat an extra meal, or you eat something that's not in your diet, you shouldn't freak out about it. It's on average. Most sleep doctors will say a consistent wake time and go to bed at the same time is probably the ideal for most humans. But and that raises a real concern. Our hats go off to shift workers, doctors and nurses and firemen and cops. They work the night shift and they work the day shift and they're all
Oh,
over the
no,
place.
this is something
This is very this is a heavy load on these people's lives, and they have to really make sure that they dial in the rest of their life proper nutrition and proper training, because especially if they're a new cop or a new nurse, they're going to give them the shit. You're going to be like, you're going to work this, and they don't, once you get later into the career, then you can get more of a steady schedule. And, we've all heard the term, the graveyard shift.
Mhm.
That's not because they worked in the graveyard, because there are studies that people that work the night shift, because it's not natural and it's not on the circadian rhythm, they die sooner.
This is something I've worked in television production for, over 20 years.
Right.
And whether you're freelance or you have a full-time job, a lot of these jobs come at different times. They are different lengths of the day. And I know that my immune system takes a nosedive when I'm all messed up in terms of my sleep schedules and how long I'm working, and also just not able to function at a very high level. And for doctors, I do get worried about this, and I'm not sure why it's a thing. Putting a doctor on a 24-hour shift, do you want that doctor coming to help you at hour 22?
You don't.
I
And
don't.
there's an actual thing.
I don't know why they do it. It should be illegal.
And it should be. And there's a thing for pilots. I won't say exact hours, but there's a thing called decision fatigue.
Yeah, of course.
And they can only fly X amount of
They don't
hours.
let
And then
truck drivers work for more than 10, 12 hours, but you're going to let a doctor? And I get it. I don't want them, really driving 16, 20 hours a day
right.
and then veering off the side of the road and crashing. It's not safe. But it's also not safe to go in for a diagnosis when someone is delirious.
No, and now it's detrimental to the patient's health
And the doctor.
and the doctors.
And the doctor. And a
Yeah.
lot of times you see health professionals and they don't look very healthy. And that's because their lifestyle it's not a healthy lifestyle. So, this is something that I would love to see in the next couple years, people address and fix these long shifts that people do. That's just simply unfair, not healthy, and it's just not a good idea.
No.
So I do want to wrap it up, but I do have one more quick question. Alcohol. I'm assuming it's not good for sleep. Now, I know people out there, a lot of our viewers may enjoy having a drink at night,
Yep.
2 drinks at night, maybe a few on the weekend, whatever it is, let loose, unwind. And I'm not saying to totally give up alcohol, but I'm assuming that it's probably not helping them sleep well.
No. A lot of people will get knocked out by the alcohol. But they think it's helping them, but it's not. It's actually disturbing their sleep midway through, and it could be a blood sugar dump. It could be the cortisol that the alcohol makes the body produce. But yeah, and I'm somebody that likes to drink, but drinking every day, every night is probably not a great idea if you're suffering.
I'm sure you're not getting into a good REM
Yes.
sleep if you're wasted or even slightly
Right.
drunk. You're probably a little dehydrated because you've been drinking alcohol, not water, right?
Yeah.
These are things that all affect your sleep.
Yeah. It's pretty much just another good reason not to drink on a regular basis.
And I believe alcohol actually reduces melatonin levels too. So it's there's a whole bunch going on with alcohol that's fighting against a good night's sleep. So just be mindful of that.
My mom's gonna watch this and say, "See, Michael, listen to Nick. Stop drinking."
That's all I got. I think, we covered a lot of ground,
Yeah.
for this episode, and I'm a little tired. I might go and take a nap now, but like a short nap, like a 10-minute, very quick power nap. I'm not getting into REM sleep, but, just like to keep my day going.
All right.
Anything to add before we head out?
Yeah, I think if everybody gets, I think that sleep right now, it's a hot topic on the internet or whatever you're looking at. And don't be dogmatic about it. Make sure that your training is good.
Yeah.
You're not overtraining, you're not undertraining, you're getting a good amount of protein, fats, and carbohydrates. And let your body let you know how much sleep you need.
Mhm.
And don't think that you definitely need to have 7 or 9 hours, because there's people that may have gotten that amount of sleep, Nick, when they were 40 or 50 pounds overweight. And sleep is somewhere you go to restore the body.
Mhm.
And I've seen it 100 times, Nick, where people come in, they sleep 9 hours a day, they're 40, 50 pounds overweight, they're hypertensive, they have diabetes, and then a year later, they've lost all the weight, they're off all their medication, and they come in and say, "You know what? It's the weirdest thing, Mike. I only need like 6 hours of sleep now." Your body was carrying around, you were doing a lot of labor carrying around that extra 40, 50 pounds. You were on medications that were toxic. Now your body's healthy and it doesn't need as much time in the recovery station. So
Oh.
don't overthink these things. Your body will kind of let you know what it needs.
Mhm.
And if you wake up after 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours of restful sleep, then you might be one of these blessed people that have short sleep characteristics. And don't overthink it because somebody says you wear your watch and you should be getting X amount of sleep. So your body will let you know if you've had good sleep or you haven't, and you probably won't need to wear a watch for it. So
All right. Great.
let's, hone in everything in your life, Nick. Your nutrition, your training, and then your body will take the recovery it needs.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a pretty good place to stop. I think it is interesting that if you're getting more healthy, you might need less sleep. So that is something that people can really consider. Let us know if any of the things that we talked about today help you get a more restful night's sleep. And have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you in the next video. And if you get a good night's sleep, good for you. Please like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so you don't miss any videos in the future.